Hello, welcome to DOB Now Build for Sidewalk Shed, Supported Scaffold, Construction Fence, and Sign Filings. During today's session, we'll describe DOB Now, we'll let you know where to go for help, and then we'll talk through the importance of registering for eFiling. Then we'll log in and navigate within DOB Now Build. We'll create a new job filing. Our job filing will have some objections, so we'll schedule an appointment, resolve those objections, and resubmit. Then we'll file the PW2 and print a permit. We'll request an after-hours variance, and then we'll walk through post-approval amendments, letters of completion, and subsequent filings. The structure of today's session will be presentation, some scenarios performed in DOB Now, and a series of knowledge checks. Over in the handout section, there is a document that captures all of the key points from today's webinar, leaving some of the key points blank so that you can follow along and capture the key points. We'll go through this during the session today. And if you don't capture all of the correct answers, the answer key has been posted to the Department of Buildings website, and we'll show you where in just a moment. So first, let's talk about DOB Now. So DOB Now is the Department of Buildings web-based online portal that gives owners, design professionals, and licensees the ability to conduct their business with the Department of Buildings online. And DOB Now consists of 4 components. The first is DOB Now Build, which we're talking about today, where you can file applications for projects and request permits. DOB Now Inspections is where you can request and schedule inspections. And DOB Now Licensing is coming in 2018, where you will be able to manage your licenses online. And the 4th component is DOB Now Safety, that's used for compliance filings. And DOB Now is created for you, our customers, to improve and enhance your experience working with the Department of Buildings. DOB Now will make doing business with the DOB more convenient by allowing you to create, pay for, and submit filings from the convenience of your computer, resulting in fewer trips to a DOB location. You'll have access to more information and will be able to see exactly where your filings are in the approval process. You'll know if the DOB is reviewing your filing or if the DOB is waiting for you to take action. Building owners and applicants will have access to real-time information, resulting in increased transparency. And with the move from paper forms to digital, processing time should improve. But we know that change is challenging and change is difficult, and our natural reaction as humans is to resist change. And we just want to know that this next number of months will be operating between the BIS system and DOB Now, and we know it'll be a little bit challenging. We want to make sure that you know that you have the support you need during this transition. And so the Department of Buildings website will be your first go-to resource. There's a dedicated DOB Now Resource Center that you can find at www.nyc.gov/DOBNowInfo. And there you'll find answers to frequently asked questions, our detailed step-by-step process manuals, this presentation, tip sheets, and videos specific to processes performed in DOB Now. Also on the Department of Buildings website, you're able to subscribe to Buildings News, our monthly email newsletter, and as part of that subscription, you'll receive DOB Now Digest, which provides updates on all the latest with DOB Now, including additional work types being added to the system and details on upcoming training sessions. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. If you need more individualized support, you're welcome to reach out to the DOB Now customer service team, and you can access them at www.nyc.gov/DOB Now Help. We'll ask you to complete a brief ticket, and then the customer service team will reach out to you to help you with any questions or challenges you have. So let's talk about the key dates and changes coming in DOB Now. So the key date for the work types we're talking about today, sidewalk, shed, supported scaffold, construction fence, and signs, is October 16th. So beginning October 16th, using DOB Now for these filings, for these work types, will be mandatory. So what this looks like in DOB Now is, as of October 16th, we'll have a number of work types that are mandatory in DOB Now, and that includes antenna, curb cut, construction fence, sidewalk, shed, supported scaffold, and signs. And you're also able to submit filings for plumbing, sprinkler, and standpipe, but those are optional at this point. Also, you'll notice on October 16th that these work types will be removed from eFiling. And if a filing is brought to a borough office with the sign box checked in Section 5 of the PW1, or the temporary construction equipment in Section 6 and or Section 15, if any of those are included in your filing, the borough office will reject the filing and ask you to pull out these 4 work types and file those in DOB Now, and then resubmit the remainder of your filing if applicable. There are a number of work types that are not included in this release that may be related to the work types we're talking about today. So chutes, derricks, cranes, hoists, and suspended scaffold. Those are not included in this release, and you should continue to use e-filing or filing in the borough office. However, if you have a job and it's beyond the pre-filing stage and you have a biz job number, you will continue with the current process, so there's no need to start over. In terms of work types that can be filed together on a single filing, so sidewalk, shed, supported scaffold, and construction fence can be filed in conjunction with each other. Similarly, plumbing, sprinkler, and standpipe can be filed together. However, antenna, curb cut, and sign filings are standalone filings and must be filed separately. There are a number of processes related to these DOB Now jobs that are not enabled in DOB Now quite yet. We're working on them. But for now, if you need to do any of the actions in the list on this slide, you'll want to submit a request through www.nyc.gov/DOB Now help, and our dedicated DOB Now team will help process these requests for you. So these processes include withdrawal and superseding requests. So that means if you need to swap out a stakeholder on a filing, a design professional, a contractor, an owner. Required document waiver and deferral requests. So we'll show you in a bit that the system generates the list of required documents for you. So if you determine that the document should be waived or it should be deferred until a later stage in the process, you would submit that document waiver and deferral request through DOB Now Help. Likewise, if you need to file an AI1 for a minor change to the plans, or request a manual appointment using the PER 11, or you have some determinations that need to be processed, the CCD1 or the ZRD1, and then the L2 process. So all of those processes for these DOB Now jobs will be handled through nyc.gov/DOB Now help. And just related to signs, in DOB Now you'll be able to pay for the application for new signs, but the annual fee for signs will still be managed through the Department of Finance. So something else you'll notice that's coming with DOB Now is a change to our numbering and naming scheme for our job filings and permits. So you'll notice that the job numbers in DOB Now will begin with a letter followed by 8 digits. And that letter is a code for the borough. So M for Manhattan, B for Brooklyn, X for the Bronx, Q for Queens, and S for Staten Island, and then 8 digits. Each job number will have a filing number that consists of 2 characters. So there's 3 different types of filings. There's an initial filing, a subsequent filing, and a post-approval amendment, or PAA. And your job number will be appended with the 2-digit code to represent the type of filing. We'll talk about the filing types in just a minute in a little more detail. Then when we get to the permit stage, we'll take the job number and the filing number, and then we'll add the permit type, so the 2-letter code for the work type. So the example here is a sign permit. So the codes are SH for sidewalk shed, FN for fence, SF for supported scaffold, and SG for sign. And then your after-hours variance numbers for your DOB Now jobs will start with a borough code followed by 7 digits. So I mentioned that there are 3 types of filings. There's an initial filing, a post-approval amendment, and a subsequent filing. So let's talk a little bit about those. So an initial filing is just what it sounds like. It's the original application, and that's what generates your job number. And so our example here is we have a sidewalk shed and construction fence job filing with the number shown to the right. And you'll see that -I1, that indicates it's the initial filing. And there will always only be 1 initial filing. Then if you need to make some changes to the filing after the approval stage, you may need to file a post-approval amendment. And so that is when the scope of work increases or there's a significant change to the plans. So if we would need to do that for this particular job, you'll notice that now we'll keep the same job number, but the filing number will be a -P1 to stand for the first post-approval amendment. And then a subsequent can be used to link standalone jobs at the same property or to add additional work types. So our example here is that we filed we're adding supported scaffold to that job we created up above, the sidewalk shed and construction fence. So we're keeping the same job number, and we're adding the -S1 to indicate it is a subsequent filing. All right, so let's pause for a knowledge check. So true or false, using DOB Now for sidewalk shed, supported scaffold, construction fence, and sign filings after October 16th is optional. If you answered false, you are correct. So as I mentioned earlier, filings for these 4 work types will be mandatory in DOB Now. Will the borough office will they accept or reject this filing after October 16th? If you answered reject, you are correct. So again, if Section 5 or Section 16 includes any of these 4 work types, the borough office will reject the filing. How do you change or replace the applicant of record or contractor for a DOB Now job? So after the filing has been submitted, if you need to make a change, you'll want to submit a withdrawal or superseding request. And if you flash back to that grid of requests that I showed you a little bit earlier, you'll need to go to nyc.gov/DOB Now Help and select that option and provide the information, and our DOB Now support team will go behind the scenes of your DOB Now job filing and make those updates for you. All right, so to use DOB Now, you'll need to be registered for eFiling. So the good news is if you're already registered for eFiling, you're good to go in DOB Now. If you need to register for eFiling, you're going to want to go to the Department of Buildings website. There's a link right on the homepage, or you can get there directly from nyc.gov/DOB eFiling. And in the picture shown here, there's a Register for Electronic Filing button, and you'll want to click that. And the individuals associated with these 4 work types that will need to be registered for eFiling are listed here, and that includes property owners, filing reps, our design professionals, our general contractors and sign hangers, and the lessees associated with signs, and then our special and progress inspectors, and if necessary, members of the site safety team. So they will go to the Department of Buildings website, they'll click that link, and a form like this will come up, the enrollment form. And this will ask them to enter the email address that they're using as their user ID and then create a password and enter their contact details. If you have a license, we're going to ask for a bit more information, so we'll ask about your license number and your business information. And so the process looks a little something like this. So if I'm a property owner, I'm going to go to that registration form and I'll complete the information and I'll click submit. I'll get an email, a verification email that comes back, and I'll need to click the link in that verification email, and then I will be notified that my eFiling account is active. If you're a licensed professional, contractor, sign hanger, or filing rep, additional steps are necessary. So you'll complete that registration form and submit it. You'll get a verification email, and you click the link in that email, and it will take you to an authentication form, which is a summary of the information you entered. And you'll print that off, and you'll sign, date, and seal it if you have a seal, or sign, date, and notarize it if you don't. And then you'll take that paperwork along with any credentials that you have to the Department of Buildings, to LAA on the 5th floor at 280 Broadway, or you're also able to mail that information. And then the Department of Buildings will go through your application and your credentials and activate your eFiling account. All right, so we've gotten some questions about what exactly is the difference between eFiling and DOB Now. So DOB Now is our future system, so ultimately all applications and permits will be filed through DOB Now. The main difference you'll see on this chart here is that through eFiling, you're still filling out kind of PDF versions of forms and uploading them. And in DOB Now, those main forms have been converted into screens within DOB Now. So there's less uploading of documents. You'll still need to upload the plan set or the sketches, and there are some required items. For example, if you need an asbestos letter or something from FDNY or the Department of Transportation that you may still need to upload. But the main forms associated with the filings will be completed as screens in DOB Now, and we'll show you that shortly. All right, so we're still preparing to access DOB Now Build, and we're recommending using Internet Explorer 9, especially if you're a user of DOB Now Inspections. DOB Now Inspections, for now, works best in Internet Explorer 9. Now, DOB Now does work in IE 9 and above, as well as Chrome, and then for Mac users, Firefox might be the browser that you want to work with. We do not recommend using Safari at this point. Something else you'll want to note is that DOB Now does pop new windows, and occasionally those windows may be blocked by your internet browser pop-up blockers. So there's a couple ways to address that. One is to turn off your pop-up blockers, although I don't know that we recommend that. The other is to just monitor your browser bar for that indication that there is a pop-up, and then select to allow pop-ups from these sites. So set these sites as trusted sites. All right, true or false? The property owner must be registered in eFiling before a filing can be submitted. And the correct answer for that is true. Our property owners, along with this list of key stakeholders for these work types, all need to be registered in eFiling. All right, roles and responsibilities in DOB Now. So who can do what? It's a little bit different than today's world. And so here's a summary of who can do what. For professional certification filings, it's similar to today that the professional engineer and the registered architect are the only ones who can be the applicant of record for the PW1. There's certain situations where an owner can be the applicant of record for a sidewalk shed, and likewise for a construction fence or a sign hanger. And for fence and sign, for fence, the general contractor And for SHED, the general contractor can be the applicant of record through the whole process. I mentioned that the owner can be the applicant of record for a sidewalk shed if it is BSA approved. All right, so this is a little bit of an eye chart, but this kind of shows by role: design professional, owner, filing rep, general contractor, sign hanger, who can do what within DOB now. So you'll notice a lot of green here. So all these roles have a lot of access to add and edit information to the filing. One thing you'll note is that the design professional needs to upload what's called a DPL1, which is how they'll upload their seal and signature. So they need to upload that themselves when they're going through this sign-off process on the filing. And I'll show you that in just a minute. For our special and progress inspectors, their roles and access are limited to the technical documents in the filing. So the TR1, the TR8, and the EN2, and they have a role related to identifying requirements and then certifying that the inspections have occurred. All right, so let's talk about signing on to DOB Now builds. So the first thing you'll want to note is the URL for DOB Now, and that is www.nyc.gov/DOB Now. When you go to that URL, you'll get to the DOB Now login page that looks a little bit like this. And on the left 2/3 of the page is something that's called the public portal. So similar to what we have access to today in BIS, for DOB Now job filings, there is a portal that's accessible without a user ID or password, where you can search by address or building identification number, borough block lot, or device, and look up that publicly available information. And I'll show you a demo of that at the end of today's session. Over on the right is the DOB Now login. So this is where we'll enter our eFiling email address and the password that we set up, and then we'll click Login. If you forget your password, just below that login screen, you can click Can't Access Your Account, and that will take you to the eFiling help. And then where the number 2 is, that's another way to contact our customer service team. So if you need to reach them, you can, from the login screen, click that link, and it will take you to the help form. We've entered our email address and password successfully, and we've gotten to the DOB Now homepage, and we're going to select DOB Now Builds. And when we do that, it will take us to our own personalized dashboard. And a dashboard is just what it sounds like. It's your kind of one place at a glance that you can see all of your information related to your DOB Now job filings. So let's walk through this in a little more detail. At the top of the screen are a series of blue buttons with plus signs. And so the plus sign is your indicator that you're creating something new. So we have plus job filings, work permits, AHV permits, and request LOC, which stands for letters of completion. Below those blue buttons are a series of tabs, and each tab will eventually, over time, have lists under them. And these tabs are My Jobs, My Work Permits, My AHV Work Permits, My LOC Request, and then a job number search. So I mentioned that your dashboard is personalized. And so if I'm a filing rep and I'm logging in under My Jobs, I'll see the jobs that I'm associated with. Likewise, if I am an owner and I log in and go to the My Jobs tab, I'll only see the jobs that I'm associated with. Now I'm looking a little more closely at the My Jobs tab and just want to point out some additional navigation. So where the number 1 is where you can filter your list of filings by work type, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. Where the number 2 is, just below the column headings, there are boxes that you can do kind of on-the-fly searches. So if I wanted, for example, to see all of my filings that are in the approved status, I would go to the filing status column, and underneath that I would type approved, and that would filter my my list on the fly. Where the number 3 is, you'll notice there's down arrows next to all of the column headings. If you click on that down arrow, you're able to sort the list either in ascending or descending order. And then where the number 4 is, that's where you can tailor a little bit the columns that you're seeing in this view. So if you click those 3 lines there, you'll be able to add or remove columns. So in my example here, I removed the borough column so that I could see the owner column. Over time, you'll have more and more filings, and all the history will be here for you in your dashboard. And so your list of filings may spill over onto more than one page. And one of the ways you'll know that is that page navigation will appear in the lower left. And I've blown that up a little bit on the right here so you can see what it looks like. But again, you'll just click the arrows to navigate from page to page, and you're also able to set the number of items per page that you'd like to see. It defaults to 10. All right, so here's the Filter My Jobs. So you would click the down arrow on Filter My Jobs and select the work type. So if I wanted to see all my sign filings, I could click Sign, and it would filter my list. And then where the number 2 is, that's where you can clear your filters. All right, so I mentioned the different tabs on the dashboard. Most are related to specific filing types, job filings or permits or LOCs, but there is a tab called Job Number Search. And when you click on that, it gives you a search box where you can enter the 9-digit job number that we talked about earlier and click Search. And when you do that, it will bring back a list of filings. And you can see here, this is just an example where we typed in a job number, and this particular job has 3 filings. So you can see the I1, the P1, and the S1. So we've got an initial filing, a subsequent filing, and then a PAA, just for an example here. And to open the filing, you just double-click on the job filing ID to open the filing. All right, so let's pause for another knowledge check. Let's make sure you're taking good notes today. So what is the URL for DOB Now? And the answer is www.nyc.gov/DOB Now. All right, so let's navigate a filing. So we just kind of walked through the dashboard, and now we double-click to open a filing. When we do that, this is what a filing looks like. So let's delve a little bit deeper into the structure of a job filing. So the first couple of things are navigational in nature. So the one thing you're always going to want to know is where is the Save button. So the Save button is in the upper left, it's blue. And then over in the right, where the number 2 is, that is a Back to Dashboard button. So when you're in a job filing and you want to go back to that dashboard that we were just looking at, the best way to do that is use that Back to Dashboard button versus the back arrow in your browser. Above that navigation is a status bar. So I mentioned earlier that you'll be able to know at any given time where your job filing is in the approval process. And so as we go through the process, those blue circles will get filled in, and at a glance you can always tell what status your filing is in. So common statuses are pre-filing, so that's when the filing is in your hands, it's being entered, documents are being uploaded, approvals are happening, reviews and sign-offs are happening with the design professional and the and the owner. Then before you submit it to the Department of Buildings, it goes through an applicant of record review, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then once you hit submit or file, and the filing is transferred to the Department of Buildings, the status will change to Plan Examiner Review or Professional Certification QA Review, depending on the review type you're selecting. And then we'll get to a stage where the plan is approved. The you'll have your permit submitted, and it will be permit review, then permanent hire, and then ultimately letter of completion. And because we can monitor the status electronically, the system itself can send notifications as the filing progresses through the process. And so all the stakeholders associated with the filing will get email notifications. So that includes the owner, design professional, and filing reps. And then once you get to the permit stage, the general contractor will receive those permit-related notifications, as will our original stakeholders here. And you'll want to note that the emails will come from a DOB Now Do Not Reply mailbox. Occasionally, those emails are getting caught in a spam filter. So when you create your first filing, check for that acknowledgement email. And if you do not get one, go ahead and check your spam filter or your junk mail folder. And if this do not reply email is in there, make sure you set that as a safe sender so you get your notifications. All right, so now let's jump down below the navigation to a series of arrows, and we're calling them chevrons or tabs. And these are the sections of your filing. And the one that's dark blue is the section that is currently active. To move from section to section, you would just click on that chevron or tab. Below the series of chevrons is the screen itself. So the left 2/3 is where the data entry occurs. And then over in the right is a section that's common to each and every tab, and it's called the application highlights. And that consists of information about the filing itself. It's also where the fees are calculated and where you would kick off the payment process. So if I were live in the system, I would go ahead and click through each of these tabs just to give you a feel and flavor for what the screens look like in DOB Now. So the first and default tab is the plans work, which is our PW1, very similar to the paper form today. For our shed, scaffold, and fence filings, the second tab will typically be a scope of work. For a sign filing, they won't have a scope of work. Instead, they'll have a cost affidavit or the PW3. Each filing will have a technical report or a TR1. Some sign filings will require the TR8, and if that's the case, this tab will appear. Every filing will have a documents tab. Every filing will have a work permits tab. And then some sign filings may require the EN2, the energy report. And then there's a statements and signatures tab. And we'll talk a little bit about each of these areas in more detail. So first we're going to go ahead and create a new job filing. So we'll start on our dashboard and we'll click the plus job filing button. When we do that, the system's going to ask us which work types we would like to include in the job. So this is just an example where we're doing a sidewalk shed, supported scaffold, and construction fence all together. So we would check those boxes and click submit. For a sign filing, we would check the sign box and click submit. And I mentioned that sign filings along with antenna and curb cut filings must be standalone filings. So the system has intelligence built in. So if I select a sign work type, I'm not able to select any other work type. So you'll get that red indicator that you can't add work types to a sign filing. As we go throughout the screens, we'll want to be looking for red asterisks. So red asterisks are the symbol that indicates that the field is a required field. We'll also see some fields that are grayed out. And that means those fields are read-only. And that's because a couple of reasons. One, that the data is being pulled from another system. So for example, on this screen here, I've entered the email for the applicant, and when I did that, it brought over the applicant's information from the eFiling system. Likewise, when you enter the property information, additional information will come over for biz. Another reason a field may be gray is that the filing has reached a stage where that field is no longer editable. So again, anything that's gray is read-only. And I've kind of alluded to this earlier, but the system has business rules and business intelligence built in. And so the forms will generate based on the information specific to your filing. So it will only display the fields and the chevrons or the sections of the filing that are needed for the type of filing you're creating. So you'll really want to pay special attention to the chevrons and the red asterisks to guide you through completing the filing. All right, something else you want to know is, what do I need to enter to be able to save a filing? And so for these types of filings, there's 3 sections at a minimum that you need to enter to be able to hit save. And those 3 areas are Section 1, the location information, Section 2, the applicant information, and Section 11, the job description. So Section 1 is the location information. We'll enter the house number, the street name, the borough, the block, and the lot. And then we'll click the plus add to add the work on floors details. For Section 2, I'll enter the eFiling email address for the applicant, and then I'll select their license type. And when I do that, it'll reach out to biz and fill in the rest of the information for me. And then I want to enter Section 11, the job description, and that is a 500-character free-form text field. And so once I have those 3 sections filled out, I'm able to hit the Save button, and you'll notice now next to job and filing number, that's blank. And so when I hit Save, it's going to ask me to confirm the address, because once I hit Save, I'm not able to change the address. So we'll click Yes, and we'll get a successful confirmation, so we'll click OK, and then the job and filing number will generate. If after I did that and I looked more specifically at the address and the bin number that came over and determined that that was not the correct address, or if you're just going through the process and you realize that you either made a mistake or you need to delete a filing, you're able to do that as long as it's in the pre-filing status. So that means it's still in your hands. And you would do that from your dashboard, from the My Jobs tab. Over in the far right, there's a column called Filing Action. And you would click the down arrow and select Delete. Now, if you're not able, if the filing's in a stage where you're not able to delete, that button will not appear, or that option will not appear. All right, so let's just walk through the PW1, the plans work, a little bit more. I'm not going to go through each and every section, but I just want to call out some of the high-level ones that you'll probably be interested in, and I think these mirror very closely the current paper form. So Section 3 is where you enter the information about the filing rep, their eFiling email address. And once you do that, that associates the filing rep with this filing and makes this filing appear on the filing rep's dashboard. So if the filing rep was doing the first portion of this exercise, they would want to go ahead and enter their information right away, probably even before they hit the Save button. If you want to add the owner's information right at the outset, we have put all the owner's information all in one place on the Statements and Signatures tab. So if you flash back to when we were looking at the chevron bar at the top, the Statements and Signatures is in the far right. And if you click on that chevron and scroll down to the owner information section, you can enter the owner's eFiling email address, and that would associate the owner with the filing once you've saved the filing. And that would make this filing appear on the owner's dashboard. Section 4 on the PW1 is where you select your review type. Once you select that at the beginning, that review type will persist throughout the life cycle of the job. Section 5 is your Directive 14 acceptance. Section 8 is called Additional Information, but I want to point out a few interesting aspects of this section. So the first is in Section 8, if you have a new buildings job that's filed in biz, and say you're doing a construction fence associated with it, you'll want to link that construction fence to the biz job. So where the number 1 is this job associated with an NB job filed in biz? We'll say yes, and then that second field will appear where we would enter the biz job number. And there's a validation that occurs there to check that it is an active biz job number. Also in Section 8, once you've entered enough information and hit this Save button at least once, this Estimate Fees calculator will appear and activate. So if you're interested in estimating the fees as you're going through creating this application, you can click that Estimate Fees button and a little window will pop up with the fee details. All right, so let's continue to look at the PW1, the Plans of Work tab, and I just want to call out the specific sections for the work types we're talking about today. So let's start with construction equipment. And just like on the paper form in Section 6, that's where our work types will be listed. Those are the ones we checked when we first created the filing. And then it's going to ask us if we're doing new work or legalization. And then in Section 15, we'll add just some high-level information about our fence and our shed, and more details about the scaffold along with the fence and the shed will be required on the Scope of Work tab, and I'll show you that in just a minute. For our sign filings on the PW1, there is a specific section available. Before I show you that, though, I do want to let you know that you can file for up to 10 signs at one property and one application as long as they're located on the same address and have the same borough block and lot and the same zoning requirements. If they don't, you'll want to file those as separate filings. All right, so on the PW1, after we hit Save for the first time, so again, that entering 1, 2, and 11 and hitting Save is going to be a best practice. Section 23 will be added to the filing, and this is where you'll add the details for your signs. So what we'll do in Section 23, we see our little plus sign, so that's where we add something new. So we'll click plus Add New Sign, and then the ability to enter the lessee's information is above, and the lessee will need to actually log in and read the statement and check off on it on that Section 23 of the PW1. And then below that is where the sign details are. So you'll add all the details of the sign, and then you'll want to click Save. And now you'll see that that sign has been added to our filing, and you're able to edit or delete the sign from the filing as long as your filing is in the pre-filing status. All right, so we kind of covered the basics of the PW1. As you probably know, there are many more sections to the PW1. We're not going to spend time walking through those today. But now we're moving to the next tab on our temporary construction equipment filing, which is called Scope of Work. So I'm going to click on the Scope of Work chevron. And when I do that, I'm going to, there's a section for each. So this is the supported scaffold. So we'll use our pick list, look for our red asterisk. One thing I want to point out is this section 4 here. And actually, I've also, for each of these, for section 2 and section 4, I've answered yes. And when I answered yes, the additional fields below that appear. So for section 4, it's asking me, is there any related construction equipment? I'm going to say yes. And when I do that, it's going to ask me to select and then enter the related either DOB now or biz job number. For the scope of work for the sidewalk shed, again, I've kind of expanded this. The system will generate and make new fields appear based on your selection. So I've, for section 2 and section 4, I've selected yes for both of those. And when I did that, additional fields appeared. And then for our construction fence, we've got 2 required fields here, the fence height and the location of the fence. So that's the scope of work tab. And again, we filed for all 3 work types, so all 3 of these sections would appear on the scope of work tab. For our sign filing, we'll have a cost affidavit or a PW3. So we'll click on the cost affidavit chevron, and when we do that, we're able to add the cost details. So again, we're adding something new, so we'll look for our plus sign and we'll click plus add. And we'll add, a little box will pop up and we'll add the sign details. Once we do that, we'll click save, and then we would repeat for each sign if we had multiple signs associated with this filing. All right, so moving on across our series of chevrons, we're going to look at the technical documents. So in certain situations, you may want a progress or special inspection, and for our temporary construction equipment, the progress inspections are optional and the special inspections are not permitted for our temporary construction equipment. But again, let's just walk through this a little bit. So we're going to go to, in this case, the TR1, and when we get there, it's going to ask us, are we the applicant, the special inspector, or the progress inspector? So in our situation here, we're the applicant. So we'll check that box. And then we can add the special or progress inspection categories. So again, there's that plus button, our signal that we're adding something new. So in this situation, we're going to add a progress inspection. So we've added that requirement. And then we'll enter the inspectors. Oh, this is special inspection, sorry. Special inspection. We'll enter the special inspector's eFiling email address, and then we'll click Save. So that's going to associate that filing with the inspector and make sure this filing appears on their dashboard. You realize at a later date, they'll have to go in and take responsibility for that requirement, and I'll show you that in a minute. But in the meantime, let's just pause for a quick knowledge check. All right, so what are the minimum sections you need to complete to generate a job number? If you answered sections 1, 2, and 11, you are correct. True or false? Sign filings can be filed in conjunction with other work types in DOB Now builds. Hopefully you answered false, but even if you don't remember, the system will remind you that signs need to be standalone filings. However, sidewalk shed, supported scaffold, and construction fence can be filed together. How many signs can you include on a single application? And the answer is 10. And again, they need to be at the same address with the same borough block lot. All right, so let's take a little detour here and talk about fee-exempt filings. So you may be wondering, how do I indicate that the property I am doing this work at is fee exempt and I shouldn't have any fees due? So let me walk you through that. So first, very early on, you're going to want to go to the Statements and Signatures tab. So probably complete the PW1 and then maybe jump over to the Statements and Signatures chevron by clicking on that. And within the owner's Statements and Signatures, there are the two questions that will result in a fee-exempt filing. So the first one at the top is you're indicating that the property is nonprofit owned and operated, or you're indicating that NYCHA, HSC, and HHC, NYC agency, or other government owned or operated building. So if you check yes in either one of those, then you'll want to click Save. And when you do that, it's going to add a document to the required documents section. You'll need to upload what's called an ACRIS report, which is a verification of the fee exempt status. And I know we haven't talked about required documents yet, but I just wanted to mention this, and we'll show you in detail how to upload documents in a moment. And to get your ACRIS report, this presentation will be on the website, so you can get to this link. But you'll want to go to the Department of Finance's Property Information site, which the URL is here, and you'll do your search. You'll look for the tentative or final assessment roll. You'll make sure the assessed value is 0, and then you're going to want to save down that report as a PDF so you can upload it with your job filing. Once you check yes in one of those two buttons, also, and save the filing, you'll notice that the amount due will be 0. All right. So we're just going through a regular filing here, and now we've gone through the main chevrons, right? We started with the plans work, we did our scope of work or cost affidavit, we did our TR1, and now as we move across the chevrons, we're getting to the Documents tab. So when we click on the Documents tab, the system will have generated a list of required documents based on the details of our filing. And you'll notice in the document status that it will be listed as required, and then it will say required prior to. So it'll indicate the phase of the status where these documents are due. So notice that the first 4 are due prior to approval. Our asbestos form is due prior to permit issuance, and our final cost affidavit, this must be a signed filing, is due prior to sign-off. One of the forms that will be required on each and every filing where a licensed professional is involved or a design professional is involved is this DPL1 seal and signature form. So the DPL1 is a new requirement. This form is accessible from the Department of Buildings website. Right from the home page, there's a Forms button that you can click, and you can look for this DPL1, and you'll want to download a copy of it and complete the top portion, which is your contact details and license information, and then you're going to want to print off the document, sign it, date it, and seal it. And then you can go ahead and scan that in and save it as a PDF, and then you're able to upload this DPL1 as your seal and signature on each and every DOB Now filing for up to a year. So we'll be looking at that date that it was signed and sealed, and you'll have up to a year to use the same file. All right, so in addition to the required documents, you're also able to upload additional supporting documents. So as you look through the list of required documents, if you feel there are additional documents that are necessary for your filing to get approved, you're able to add additional supporting documents. So you'll see the section above required documents. It's collapsed by default. You'll want to expand it by clicking the down arrow. And then when you do that, you're able to add a new document. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. All right, so here we are on our dashboard. We're going to double click to open a filing, and then we'll click OK. And then we're going to navigate to our Documents tab. We'll click the blue upload icon, and then we'll click Choose File, and it's going to take us out to our computer or our network. We'll locate the document, we'll click Open, and then we'll click Upload. We'll get a successful notification, so we'll click OK, and then we'll just repeat for each required document. For additional supporting documents, we'll expand, we'll click Add New Document, and then we'll select from the list of document types. It's going to enter the title, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll choose File, we'll go out to our computer, we'll find the document, we'll click Open, then we'll click Upload, and then it says Successful, so we'll say OK, and it will be added to our filing. And then we're going to want to save our filing. And that's how you upload documents. So I showed you that before you upload a document, the status of the document would be required in that required document section. Once you upload a document, the status will change to pending. And then once you submit the filing to the Department of Buildings, the status of all of the documents will change to submitted. And then the Department of Buildings will review each document and either accept or reject it. And if they end up rejecting one of your documents, they will let you know. You'll receive a notification. In terms of formats for documents, we're accepting PDFs and JPEGs. Please don't use any special characters, and files can be no larger than 250 megabytes. All right, quick knowledge check here. When I first upload a document, what is the document status? The answer is pending. All right, next step is to pay the filing fees. So fees must be paid before a filing can be submitted, and anyone associated with the filing can make a payment. We're selecting electronic payment methods, so e-check, credit card, and debit card. And credit and debit card payments are subject to a convenience fee. So let's take a look at how that works. All right, so here we are on our dashboard. We're going to select the filing and then click OK. And then we'll click Pay Now in the application highlights. And then once we do that, we're not able to change the building type or the filing includes, which is our work type details. So we're okay with that. So we'll click Yes. And then it's going to take us to the payment portal where we read the terms and conditions, check I agree, and then continue. And then we'll switch over to the credit card tab here and enter our credit card information and billing address. And then we'll select continue. And then we get a summary of the filing fees. And then we'll check the box and click process payment. Then we'll get a printable receipt. And when we go back to DOB Now, it'll say our payment has been processed and our amount due is now 0. All the stakeholders associated with the filing, once the payment is made, will get an email notification. And this is one of those areas where the pop-up blocker kind of jumps in. So if you click the Pay Now button and a spinning wheel comes up and it keeps spinning, you'll want to check up in your browser bar for that potential pop-up blocker warning notification. If you do see that, go ahead and click on that, and you can say, always allow pop-ups from this site. All right, so who can pay fees associated with the filing? This is an easy one. Anyone associated with the filing. All right, we're getting close to being able to submit our filing, so the next step is to complete our statements and signatures. And one of the great things about DOB now is that rather than in today's world where you have a bunch of different forms that all need to be signed and sealed by the different stakeholders, DOB now kind of compiles all that information in one tab. So each of the stakeholders is able to review everything in a single glance and sign off all at once. As I mentioned, when a licensee is completing an electronic signature, that needs to be done in conjunction with their DPL-1 form. So we've already taken care of that. We've uploaded the DPL-1 on our required documents tab, so we're getting ready to complete our statements and signatures. So I already talked about the DPL-1. And so we're going to go to the Statements and Signatures tab. When we do that, at the top will be the applicant statements and signatures. So you can see on this one it's brought over the language from the PW1 and the TR1. And so I'm checking the box. I personally reviewed all information. And then when I do that, it adds my name and the date to the filing. For the owner section, it starts off with the property owner statements. We showed you a couple of those statements earlier when we were doing our fee exempt. So those are these first two. But we want to go through and either stage these answers for the owner, have the owner answer them. A series of yes/no questions. And then there's kind of the owner information. We also took a peek at this a little bit earlier. On this particular filing, there's an acknowledgement of the Directive 14, so that will only appear if applicable. You'll select the owner type, and then where the number 3 is, that's where you'll enter the owner's eFiling email address, if we haven't already done that. We talked about doing that earlier so that this filing would appear on the owner's dashboard, which I would say is a best practice. So really, if you had done all this for the owner, what the owner would need to do is review the statements and signatures, and then they check the box. And when they do that, their electronic signature and the date are added to the filing. We're always going to want to save after these processes, and we'll continue with the final step. All right, so true or false? The owner plays no role in a filing before it is submitted to the DOB. And the answer is false. We just showed you that the property owner is required to log in, review the filing, and complete their statements and signatures. And that has to be on each time a filing is submitted to the DOB. All right, so the last step before we can submit a job to the Department of Buildings is to preview and file. This is a step that's performed by the applicant of record, and the reason that's required is we showed you earlier when we looked at that eye chart right at the beginning that other stakeholders associated with the filing can go in and update or edit the filing because we're in this digital world now. And so we want the applicant of record to do a final review before they can file the filing with the Department of Buildings. So let's take a look at what that looks like. All right, so in order to perform the applicant of record review, your filing needs to be in the status of applicant of record review. If it's not in that status, then some either required field, a required document, or payment needs to be completed. So we've successfully completed all of the tabs on our filing, and now our applicant of record is going to do a review. So I'll click the Preview to File button, which is next to the Save button, and a summary of the application will appear. and they'll be required to go through each page by clicking Next at the top of the screen to review all the detailed summary of the filing. So we'll click Next for each page. Here's our required documents. Here's our statements and signatures. And then our statements and signatures continued. And then once we get to the final page, we'll get a message that says, I have personally reviewed all information entered on this application. We'll check the box. It'll add our electronic signature and date. And when we do that, the File button will become active, and we'll click File. And we'll get a notification of successful filing, and then our application will move into, for this one, Plan Examiner Review. You'll also get a notification email once the filing has been submitted. Once the filing, if you're going standard plan, once it's assigned to a plan examiner, you'll be notified, or if you did professional certification, you'll be notified when the QA analyst has been assigned. All right, now let's check. Who is required to click the Preview to File button, review, and confirm before submitting a filing to the DOB? And the answer is the applicant of record, and we just walked through that process. All right, so making corrections. There's 3 different ways and times you can make corrections. So if you need to make a correction just after submitting a filing, you can do that in DOB Now before the filing gets assigned to a plan examiner or a QA analyst. If after approval you need to make a minor revision to the plans, you'll do what you do today. You'll file that AI1, and you'll still use the same form you're using today, and you'll submit that through nyc.gov/DOB Now Help, and our special DOB Now team can go behind the scenes and make the updates necessary. If after approval you need to make a more significant change to the filing itself or to the plan, you would file a post-approval amendment, and that you would do in DOB Now, and we'll show you how that works in just a minute. But let's first look at a correction. So as I mentioned, a correction can be made once submitted but before the filing has been assigned, and that translates to this filing status of pending plan examiner assignment or pending professional certification QA review. There are certain fields on the filing that are not editable when you're doing a correction. They'll be grayed out. And our scenarios, we need to make an update in Section 8 of our filing. And because our filing's in a pending plan examiner assignment stage, we're able to make that correction. All right, so we're going to go to our dashboard, to the My Jobs tab. We'll find the job, and notice that the status is pending plan examiner assignment. Over in the far right, we'll click on that filing action column. We'll click that down arrow, and the option for a correction will appear. So it will only appear if a correction is allowed, and so correction is appearing here, so we're going to select that. And what it will do is ask if we want to proceed with making correction. We'll say yes, and then it will put a notification on the filing that a correction is in progress. So anyone who attempts to do anything with this filing or look at this filing will be notified that that a correction is in progress. So we'll go ahead and make our adjustments to our filing, and then we'll click Save and then Resubmit. And what that does is kind of kicks off that final process that we just looked at. So it will ask us to complete the statements and signatures, both the design professional or the applicant of record and the owner, and then we'll be able to preview the file and then sign that filing within that preview to file process. Oops, sorry. And then once we do that, we can click the File button. All right, so true or false. Corrections are still allowed once a filing has been assigned to a plan examiner or a QA analyst as long as they have not started their review. If you said false, you were paying really close attention. So again, you need to, when you're doing a correction, that needs to be done before it gets assigned. All right, objections and appointments. Okay, so our scenario today is that we submitted our filing and we're the applicant of record, and we received a notification that the DOB has raised objections with our filing and has requested an appointment. So this is our scenario today so that you can see all the nitty-gritty, all the details of creating an appointment and handling objections. In many cases, if there are objections or issues with the filing, you may be able to resolve them without the plan examiner requesting an appointment. So I'll kind of point that out as we go through the differences of what you'll see. So all appointments in DOB Now for DOB Now jobs will be conducted virtually using GoToMeeting. So we'll get a notification that our filing has objections, and so we're going to kind of take note of that job number, and we'll look it up on our dashboard, and we'll notice that the filing status is objections. So we'll double-click on the filing to open it, and there's a visual indicator on the filing that tells us that objections have been raised. So you'll see that red exclamation point in the plan examiner review on the status bar. Now, our scenario here today was that we not only had objections, but the plan examiner requested an appointment. So when that's the case, in the right portion of our screen under application highlights, two new sections will appear. One is objections and one is DOB appointments. Now, as I mentioned, if objections were raised but an appointment was not requested, the DOB appointments, where the number 2 is, that would not appear. All right, so the first thing we're going to want to do is look at the objection. So we'll go to that section, the objection section, and we'll click on the word details, which will open the objection itself and provide any details and comments from the plan examiner. So this isn't a very good example here. It doesn't have any comments. It's just kind of a test objection. But you'll have the comments and details from the plan examiner. So we've looked at that, and now we need to set up our appointment to meet with the plan examiner, since that's what they requested. And so the applicant, the filing rep, or the owner can schedule the appointment, and the applicant is a mandatory attendee. Others, like the owner or the filing rep, can attend as optional, and you're only allowed one scheduled appointment at a time. So let's go ahead and take a look at how scheduling an appointment works. So we've copied our job number from that email, and we're going to paste it into that field under the column heading. And it'll pull up our filing, so we'll double-click and open it. It's going to always ask us to confirm. And then we'll scroll down. You can see our objections above, and now we're going to add an appointment by clicking that plus add appointment. And then you'll notice that the applicant is the required attendee. And now we're adding I think we're adding the owner here as an optional attendee. You can see the filing rep is listed, so you could add the filing rep at that point as well. So we'll select the owner, and then we're going to go down to the calendar and pick a date. and then we'll go down and find an available time. Only available times will show, and then we'll click submit, and it's going to confirm our date and time, and then it will say the appointment has been booked, and now the appointment will show up in our appointment grid. Once that happens, the appointment is sent to our scheduling coordinator. That individual will set up the go-to meeting and then create a calendar appointment and send that out to all of the invitees, so the plan examiner, the applicant of record, and then any optional attendees. For the go-to meeting, you're going to need a PC or a mobile device. We recommend having a webcam so you can see each other, and then you'll need a method of communicating, so either a phone or you can use a headset or a microphone with your computer. When you're using GoToMeeting, we recommend that you log in early. You want to make sure you're all set up before the time for your appointment arrives. And you're going to set your audio preferences right up front, so you may need to dial in using your phone. And you want to make sure you have your access code and audio pin handy. All right, our next scenario is that the date for our appointment is approaching, but now we need to cancel and reschedule. So we would ask, if you need to cancel, please give us 24 hours notice if at all possible. What you'll do is you'll go into that job filing, you'll go to the appointment section, and you'll see there's a little trash can icon. So you'll click on the trash can. It's going to ask you, are you sure you want to cancel that appointment? We'll say yes, and then we'll get a cancellation successful message, so we'll click OK. Once we do that, you can see that our appointment is canceled there in our grid, and now we're able to add another appointment. We just follow the previous steps that we followed. If there's a situation where the Department of Buildings needs to cancel, or maybe GoToMeeting isn't working appropriately that particular day, the scheduling coordinator is going to reach out to you to get you back on the books at the earliest possible time. All right, so now let's check. Besides the plan examiner, who is required to attend an appointment? And the answer is the applicant of record, keeping in mind that this is a virtual appointment using GoToMeeting. Okay, so we've had our appointment. We understand what we need to do to address the objection. So let's take a look at how we address objections. So again, there's a couple situations. So one may be there was a problem with the plans, and the plan examiner has asked us to make an adjustment to the plans. If that's the case, when we go into our filing, we'll see in our required documents on the Documents tab that our plan sketch was rejected. And so we'll have the ability at that point to upload the new plan set by using the upload icon. Another situation may be that the plan examiner requests some additional documents. And if that's the case, they will add the specifics of those documents to your filing, and that list or individual document will appear again in your required documents tab or section on the documents tab, and you'll go ahead and upload that. If there are just changes to the filing itself that need to be made, you can go ahead and make those. And then the next step is to close out the objection. So I mentioned many times there may be a comment on your filing that can be addressed quickly and easily with no need for an appointment, so you're going to want to know how to do this. So we'll go to our list of objections and we'll click on the Details tab. And we're going to change the status from open to resolved. So we're telling the Department of Buildings that we've taken care of this objection, and now we're going to make some comments in box number where the number 2 is, and then we'll click Save. So that will close out the objection, and we would repeat for all objections associated with the filing. Then we're going to hit save and then resubmit. When we hit resubmit, it's going to kick off the validation process. It's going to say, make sure you complete your statements and signatures, both the applicant and the owner. And if you forget to do that, you'll get a little error message that says, please acknowledge before filing. And then the applicant's going to want to go through the preview to file process once again. So they'll click the preview to file button. They will review the filing page by page. And then when they get to the last page, they'll check the box. And when they do that, it will add their electronic signature and date, and the file button will activate. All right, our next scenario is we're a design professional. We filed professional certification filing, and we receive a notification that the filing failed QA review. So just wanted to show you what this might look like if you were doing professional certification. So you would get an email saying that your filing failed the QA review. The status on your dashboard would be QA failed. You'd open up the filing, and then in the same spot where the objections were, over in the right, you would see the failure reason. So in this situation, our plans are unreadable, please resubmit. So we'll go ahead and upload the new plan set. That document would be listed as rejected, and the upload icon would be activated. So we'd upload the new plan set, and then we're going to go back to that failure reason and change it from open to resolved. And then again, we're going to save and resubmit. We'll want to do our acknowledgments, the statements and signatures. The applicant will go through the preview to file process. They'll check the box to add their electronic signature and date, and then the file button will activate. All right, so that's our application. We've received approval from the Department of Buildings, and now let's move on to creating the work permit. So as you probably know, work permits can be requested when you're doing professional certification. You can do it right at the beginning or after approval. And for standard plan, you can request your permit after approval. So our scenario is we're the general contractor for a shed and fence project, and it's now time to apply for the permits. So we're going to log in as the contractor, and we're going to click the plus work permit. So this contractor is not associated with the filing yet. It's not going to appear on their dashboard, so they need to look for the job filing. So they'll click plus work permit. They'll enter the job number and click get jobs. And then when that job appears in the list over in the filing action, they'll click create work permit. It's going to ask to confirm that you want to create the work permit. We'll say yes, and then the PW2 will appear. We'll be looking for our red asterisk. We'll complete all those required fields. And then the contractor will enter their eFiling email address, their license type. If they have more than one business associated with their eFiling address, they'll select the business. And then everything else in this section populates from eFiling. If in the situation where a design professional is acting as a contractor, they would need to manually enter their insurance information and may be required to upload a certificate of insurance over where that red box is. So there's that little document upload indicator. Also on the PW2, you're able to designate a filing rep if different. So you can see if different from applicants specified in Section 4 on the original filing, we'd click yes, and this section would appear, so we could enter the filing rep's eFiling email address. And then in certain situations, if the site safety team is required, they're going to have a section on the PW2. So this is section 7. We'll indicate who is required and enter their eFiling email address. And typically a best approval letter is required to be uploaded. And then lastly, the applicant will check the box to add, review the statements there, check the box, and then their name and date will appear, and then they can click Save. Once they click Save, they're able to click that File button. And then again, if you had multiple work types associated with your filing, you would create this permit for each work type. And it could be different contractors. Once the permit is submitted, you'll get a notification once it's under review and once it's been issued. And so something else that happens kind of around this permitting stage is if you did have a progress inspection, that inspector needs to take responsibility for that. So here's our scenario. We're a progress inspector and we're taking responsibility for a final inspection requirement. And here's our job number. So we're going to go, they're going to log in under their eFiling email address, and they're going to select the job number search tab on their dashboard. They'll enter the job number and click search. Then they're going to go to the technical document. So in this case, we're going to go to the TR1 chevron. They're going to check the box and say, I'm a progress inspector. When I do that, the progress inspection category is going to become editable. So I can click that edit button to open that category. And I'm going to enter my eFiling email address and my license type, and then I'm going to take responsibility by checking the box. So I'll check that box, it'll add my name and the date, and then I'm able to save. Now you'll notice just below that is where the inspector will go back in and certify the inspection at a later stage, and I'll show you that. All right, so we're all good to go here now. This is a different scenario here. We're a sign hanger, and we've been notified that our work permit has been approved. So we're going to log in, and we're going to print the permit. You should note that anyone associated with the filing is able to print the permit. So we're going to go to our dashboard, and this time we're going to go to My Work Permit. And we're going to locate the filing, the job number, and over in the filing actions, we'll click the down arrow and select Print Work Permit. Going to ask us to confirm. Every time we ask the system to do something, it's going to always ask us, are we sure? We'll say yes, and then the permit itself will appear in a browser window. And then you can print it by either using Control-P or the gear icon and selecting Print. You'll want to make sure that your orientation is set to landscape. Another option is where the number 2 is, you're able to print the permit as a PDF. Our next scenario is that our scaffold permit is scheduled to expire before the work will be completed, and so we're going to request a renewal. So in that case, again, we'll go to My Work Permits tab. We'll locate the filing, and over in the filing action, we'll click the down arrow and select Renew Work Permit. It's going to ask us if we're doing with or without changes. We're going to be looking for a red asterisk to complete all the information. And then there's a fee associated with a permit renewal. So sorry, back here we would complete all our required information and we would make sure we hit save. Then we would pay the fees, and then I guess you don't have to do it in this order, but the applicant or contractor would complete the statements and signatures, click save, and then file. Once you submit that renewal request, it's subject to approval, so it will go to the Department of Buildings, and they'll notify you if and when the renewal has been accepted. If you need to submit an after-hours variance, so you've gotten your permit approval and now you want to do some work after hours, so before 7 a.m., after 6, or on the weekend, the general contractor that's listed on the initial permit is the one who needs to sign off on the after-hours variance request. So here's our scenario where a general contractor, our supported scaffold assembly work needs to be performed after hours for 2 days, so we're going to file an AHV permit request. So we're going to go back to our dashboard and to the blue bar at the top, plus new AHV permit. We're going to enter the permit number and click submit. And then we're going to complete, the contractor details auto-populate because, as I mentioned, you're not able to change the contractor. And we're going to look for our red asterisk. So we're going to indicate the reason for the variance and answer the 4 questions about where the work is taking place. And then we're going to select the dates and times. Once we do that, we can click save, and then there's a fee associated with an after-hours variance permit, so we'll pay that fee. And then the applicant's able to complete their statements and signatures, so they'll check the box, and then they'll click save and submit. You'll get a notification that it was filed successfully. And this is a notification that your AHV has been approved, and so then you're able to, you'll go to My AHV Work Permits, right? We're moving across the tabs here. We'll see our status is approved, and now we need to pay the daily fee. So AHVs have a daily fee, and that's not necessary to be paid until after it's been approved. So we'll pay that fee, and we'll see our status is it has moved from approved to AHV permit issued. And at that point, we can select the filing action and either print or renew our AHV. Okay, so that's our coverage of permits. We've got a couple more topics here. So the next is a subsequent filing. So we talked about subsequent filings earlier. Our scenario is that we're a filing rep, and we did a supported scaffold filing that's been approved, and now we need to add a sidewalk shed. So we want to link those two together, and we're going to create a subsequent filing. So for the filing rep, we're going to go to My Jobs dashboard. We're going to locate the filing, and we'll click on the Filing Actions column. We'll select Subsequent Filing. It's going to ask us to confirm. We'll say yes. And then you'll kind of follow the same steps that we did previously. So we're going to enter the required information on all the tabs. We'll upload documents. We'll pay fees. We'll complete the statements and signatures. We'll preview to file and then file. So again, that preview to file and file is limited to the applicant of record. And you'll get an email notification when the subsequent filing has been submitted, and then all the notifications through the approval process. All right, so let's talk about post-approval amendments. We mentioned that those are needed to keep our application current and accurate. So if we had a significant change to the scope of work or to the plan, we're going to file a post-approval amendment. And we're going to do that when the status of the filing is either approved or permit entire. When you do a PAA, we'll ask you in section 24 on that Plans Work tab at the very bottom there just to enter some comments about what you're changing so that we understand what the changes are. And the PAA can only be filed by the applicant of record, right? Well, that's kind of a common theme here. And it must be the same applicant of record of the original filing. So again, certain fields will be read-only, so they'll be shaded in gray. And if the thing that you need to change is a constituent, a stakeholder associated with the filing, we talked about this earlier, that you would not file a PAA for, that's considered a withdrawal or a superseding request. It could be both, right? Withdrawal and or superseding. And so if you're changing the architect, the engineer, the contractor, the filing rep, the owner, you'll go to DOB Now Help and you'll select the category of request to supersede or request to withdraw and submit that information. Then our DOB Now team will go behind the scenes and make that update for you. But that's not what we're doing here today. We're actually doing a PAA. So we need to make some changes that are significant. And so we're going to go to the My Jobs tab and locate My Job filing. We're going to click the filing action, select PAA. It's going to ask us to confirm. And then it's going to create kind of a new filing. It's going to sort of copy the initial filing, but it will take this filing into the pre-filing status where we're able to make the updates that are necessary. So we'll make all those updates. We'll click Save. We'll need to upload all the documents again. There's a fee associated with PAA, and in some cases, a PAA may result in increased fees being due. So we'll go ahead and pay those. We'll complete the statements and signatures. So again, this is the applicant. Then the owner completes their statements and signatures. And then the applicant does the preview to file. You'll see that summary of the filing. You'll scroll through page by page, and then you'll sign off at the bottom. And then you're able to select the File button and submit your post-approval amendment. So you'll get a notification that that was successful. We'll click OK. And then on our dashboard, we'll see our initial filing and then our post-approval amendment filing with the -P1. You'll be notified when it's been submitted and then when it gets approved. All right, true or false? The process to submit a PAA is similar to submitting the initial job filing, and the answer is true. It's a very similar process. The only difference is that much of the information that you've entered on the initial filing still exists, and so you're just going in and making changes. All right, so our work is done. We're ready to request our letter of completion. So to request a letter of completion, you need an inspection sign-off on all the work permits. If you have a special or progress inspection, those need to be certified. And the LOC can be requested by the applicant or the property owner. So this is not a request that the filing rep can make. So it's a little bit different than today. All right, so let's look at the special or progress inspection sign-off. Again, that has to do with the technical documents, the TR1, the TR8, or the EN2. So we would go in like we did earlier. We'd say that we're a progress inspector. We're going to edit the requirement. Now we're in that section that was below where we took responsibility. Now we're saying we performed the inspection and everything conforms with the requirements. So we'll check the box, we'll pick a radio button, we'll check the box, and then we'll click Save. And then if there are multiple requirements by the same inspector, they would complete, or if you have multiple inspectors, each of them would need to complete these steps. The seal and signature for the inspector is in a little different spot, so it's not on the Documents tab. It's associated with the individual requirements. You can see what it looks like here. So they're, again, they're checking the box to apply their electronic signature. To support that, since they do have a seal, they need to upload the seal and signature. So in this case, this one's already been uploaded, so you can see it's submitted here. All right, so that was just showing you how the inspections are certified. So now that we've done that, we're able to request our letter of completion. So we're going to go back to our dashboard. We'll select Plus Request LOC. We're going to enter the job number and click Get Jobs. Then over in the far right, in the filing action, we're going to select Request LOC. This is a very brief form, so we'll enter the requester information, so that could be the applicant or the owner. We'll enter some comments. We'll check the box to sign it, and then we can save and submit. You'll be notified once the LOC has been issued. And that's our LOC process. So who can request a letter of completion? The applicant or the owner, correct. All right, so we've made it through the filing process. I just want to show you one final thing before we wrap up, and that is the public portal. So I mentioned that at the outset, that is kind of the DOB Now version of BIS, where all the DOB Now job filings for a particular property will be housed. And you should know that DOB Now jobs will not be fed back into BIS. So if you're wanting to look for the full history and activity at a property, at least for the next little while until we fully convert to DOB Now, you'll want to look at BIS, look up the building in BIS, and also come into DOB Now and look at that building. So again, I mentioned that you can locate the public portal. It's at the same URL as DOB Now itself, which is www.nyc.gov/DOB Now. I also mentioned that there's no login or password needed to access the public portal. And you can search by address, by building identification number, borough block lot, or device. So let's take a look at how that works. So here I'm going, just for kicks, I'm going to search by bin. So just click to expand. We'll enter the bin number. Actually, we're going to paste it in, I guess. And we're going to click search. And that's going to pull up the property profile. So some good details about the building. And we're going to select Build Job Filings. When we do that, it's going to pull up a list of filings. So we can just scroll through the list, or if we know which one we're looking for, we can enter it. It's going to filter our list. And then we'll click the View button. And that's going to open up the filing. And similar to what we saw in when we were entering the information, we had those tabs or chevrons across the top of the screen. Each of those tabs is converted to a section in the public portal. So we just clicked on the PW1 Plans Work to expand that section, and now we're scrolling through the PW1 here. And when we're done with that, we just click on that heading to close it down. So now we're going to look at the scope of work, so we'll click on that. And that will expand the scope of work. Let's look at the work permit. Click on that. And we can see there's a couple of work permits associated with this filing. HV, we don't have any of those. For the documents, you'll view documents associated with the filing. You're able to view those documents, but please note that the plans or the DPL ones are not available in this section. And then the last is the payment history associated with this filing. So that's just a quick overview of the public portal. Again, you're going to want to take advantage of that to review all the DOB Now filings at a particular building. All right, I think one last knowledge check. True or false, a user ID and login are required to access the DOB Now public portal. The answer is false. Anyone can access it at nyc.gov/DOB Now. All right, so let's wrap things up. We covered a lot of ground today. So we started out by talking about DOB Now, and then we let you know where to go for help, and we'll just review that again in a moment. Then we talked about the importance of registering for e-filing. We logged into DOB Now and we navigated around. We created a new job filing. We submitted that. We made some corrections. Our filing had some objections, so we scheduled an appointment. We resolved the objections and we resubmitted. We filed a PW2 and we printed a work permit and we renewed that work permit. We did an after-hours variance, a post-approval amendment, a subsequent filing, and a letter of completion. So hopefully you've been keeping track with the key points. I think we answered most of these, I think all of these questions during our session today. If you didn't catch all the correct answers, you'll be able to find the answer key out on the Department of Buildings website, and let's talk about where all that information is stored. So the DOB Now Resource Center can be accessed from www.nyc.gov/DOB Now info. And once you go in there, you'll select DOB Now Build, and you're going to want to select for these 4 work types, and you'll find all the specifics out there, like today's presentation, the answer key, answers to frequently asked questions, and the detailed process manuals, all the videos we looked at today, and tip sheets. Don't forget about our customer service team. They're available to help you as well. You can access them through nyc.gov/DOB Now Help, and they'll work with you to assist you in any way they can. All right, so I want to thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your attendance, and you'll get a quick survey after you listen to this webinar, so we'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. And we look forward to seeing your filings coming through on DOB Now. Thank you.